Animation is one of my favorite mediums of storytelling. You can tell so many different types of stories that you just can't in live action, because animation allows anything to happen. No restrictions but the creator's imagination. And I wanted to show my passion for animation, so I decided to rank every single nominee of the Best Animated Feature category at the Oscars. It contains a wide variety of films, from mainstream family films to foreign artsy films. It may not agree with all the nominee choices, and especially not the winners, but it still should be a fun journey. I know other YouTubers have done this exact thing before, but that's the neat thing with opinions. Different people have different views on media, and I think that's really cool. There are some channels with vastly different rankings than mine, and I would like to shout out a few. The first one is Johnny Two Cellos. You may have already seen this video as it's pretty popular, but it's really well made and has high production value. The other is from a much smaller channel, JA Productions. They haven't finished their series, but the parts that are currently available are really well made, and there are some significant differing opinions. So please check these two channels out. I also invited a few friends and my parents, also my cat, to do segments on some of these films. Some of them have very different opinions from mine. If you have a different opinion from mine, please tell me in the comments. It is super cool to see other people's opinions as long as you are respectful. There are also a few more things that I would like to mention. Mostly for the bottom spots, I will be recommending another animated film that wasn't nominated for that particular year, which you should watch instead. Also, this video will contain massive spoilers for nearly every film on this list. I will be providing numbered timestamps in the description if you want to skip a film you want to see. I will not be repeating this for every film, so this is your only warning. Without further ado, let's rank every Best Animated Feature nominee ever. And the worst film ever nominated for the category is Ralph Breaks the Internet. Of course it's Ralph Breaks the Internet, you saw the transition. This film angers me to no end. It is one of my least favorite animated films of all time. I want to say this is the objective worst in the ranking. There's one film that I consider critically worse, but from a personal standpoint, I just can't stand this film because it takes a film I love and wrecks nearly every aspect I like about it. I will admit there are some positives. I do like the animation. I think some of the world building is creative, mainly with the dark web. I do like Spamly because he reminds me of Spamton. There is a visually creative music number. Keyword visually creative. Ralph kills a predator. Yep, that's about it. Okay, there is one more thing I like. I do like the subplot with Felix and Cat. Wait, where's the subplot? Where is the subplot they clearly set up? Yeah, for some reason they set up an entire subplot with Felix and Calhoun adopting the Sugar Rush Racers. And they don't do anything with it until the very end. I assume these scenes were deleted, and honestly it is a real shame, as I really liked those characters in the first film and would have liked to see them more. But maybe I should consider this a blessing considering how they handled Ralph and Vanellope. I'm getting ahead of myself. I first have to talk about how this film handles the internet, and it's not great. I sure do love watching a movie and being bombarded with existing corporations and websites, some of which kids should not be allowed on. The Oh My Disney scene is just more pandering. Like, hey, do you recognize Toy Story? What about Star Wars? Look at the Disney princesses, isn't that cool? This film also has not aged well with its internet references. And I'm not talking about by today's standards, I'm talking about by 2018 standards, when the film initially released. Like, I'm willing to forgive a film for featuring Twitter when it's now called X, but what I can't forgive is the countless memes that were already dead at the time of the film's release. Like the screaming goat. Why does Disney like screaming goats so much? Make it stop. This film also deeply misunderstands how content creation works. You simply can't make hundreds of videos in one day and expect them to give you money. Maybe if they showed any semblance of burnout, I could be more lenient, but no. Ralph shows absolutely zero burnout when pumping out these mindless slop. One of my favorite scenes in the film is when Ralph goes into the comments section and sees a bunch of cheesy hate comments. I cannot stop laughing at this scene due to how utterly stupid it is. But I can forgive the corporate pandering, the forgotten subplot, and the deep misunderstanding of how the internet works if they retain the basic integrity of the two main characters and the themes of the first film. Which of course they don't. First, let's talk about Ralph. He is overly clingy over Vanellope to the point that it is genuinely creepy, while also acting incredibly stupid throughout the film. I genuinely refuse to believe he does not know how currency works. He is an arcade character, where people literally pay money to play his games. He should know how money works. I don't think the film's main theme is that bad. I think it is important for kids to learn that you don't have to be with your friends all the time and that it's okay to be apart for a while. Except for the fact that it directly contradicts the main conflict of the first film, being turbo. In the first film, they explained that going turbo or leaving your own game during arcade hours is bad. Guess what they do during this movie? Leave their own games during arcade hours. The whole conflict starts because Ralph goes into Sugar Rush when he should absolutely know better. Not to mention him leaving to the internet. And to make it worse, they don't mention Turbo one bit within the film, or even allude to the fact that leaving your game is bad. Now on to Vanellope. She actually isn't too bad, besides the fact that she wants to leave her own game to invade another game called Slaughter Race. Even though she should know firsthand why that isn't a good thing. Side note, I actually like the concept of Slaughter Race and the idea of online games in general, but it isn't handled that well. Plus, Vanellope has a god-awful song. Even if I forget about Turbo, isn't it odd that at the beginning a girl says that Vanellope is her favorite character in the game? Doesn't it suck now that character is no longer playable because she is in a completely unrelated game? Isn't that cool? Whatever. Bad movie that I spent way too long ranting about. Now on to the film I would replace this movie with. I will say that 2018 is easily the weakest batch of nominees, and that's partially due to the fact there just wasn't that many good animated films released that year, aside from Spider-Verse. So it is difficult to find an adequate replacement for this film, but bear with me, I will replace Ralph Breaks the Internet with Teen Titans Go to the Movies. Yes, I'm serious. I haven't seen the film, but from what I've seen, it's funny, creative, actually respects its source material, and actually has a lot of good songs. None of which are true with Ralph Breaks the Internet. We can only go up from here. Ferdinand is one of the most generic animated films I have ever seen. I got absolutely nothing out of this film apart from disgust whenever I saw the dabbing horses. I cannot recall any of the characters' names besides Ferdinand. I can't tell you anything they even did. There wasn't a single joke I found even remotely funny. I didn't care for any of the characters besides the little girl who was barely in the movie. I wish this movie was more focused on the girl and her father tracking down their bull rather than Ferdinand dicking around at a farm for an hour doing absolutely nothing with boring characters. And when stuff starts to happen, I just did not care. I did not have any joy in the chase scene around the city, nor at the Matador Arena. I actually felt nothing watching this film. The Garfield movie with Chris Pratt has more nuance than this movie. I originally had this film one spot higher, but the movie I have above is at least memorable and has ironically funny moments. It in itself doesn't offend me like Ralph Breaks the Internet does, despite me considering this a worst overall film. I just found it really boring that I'd rather watch a film that makes me angry. The thing that infuriates me the most about this film is its nomination. I genuinely think that this is the worst nomination in the entire category, because at least Ralph Breaks the Internet can have the excuse of there not being many options. But with this, there were a lot more options to choose from in 2017. There's the Lego Batman movie, Mary and the Witch's Flower, and the film I'm replacing this movie with, Bird Boy and the Forgotten Children. It is a dark film about two outcasts in the post-apocalypse trying to flee from their island home. I haven't seen it, but I just know I will get more from it in 1 minute than the entirety of Ferdinand. Anyways, these bottom two movies are the only ones that I put in F tier. We are now gonna enter D tier. Yay!
We're surrounded by fish. Horny fish. You know what that means. Fish.
Shark Tale. What a beautiful mess of a film. I can't really go on actively hating this film. Don't get me wrong, it's really bad. Firstly, the animation is awful, even for 2004 standards. You compare it to The Incredibles and Shrek 2 and it's night and day. The character designs are just ugly, especially these Rastafarian jellyfish. What are these? The humor is really bad. It relies on so many fish puns and pop culture references. There's a scene where Oscar just yells 3 unrelated movie lines in a row for absolutely no reason. It isn't the most atrocious thing I've seen, but you can't just say movie lines. You actually have to build them up so people who don't understand these references will still find it funny. I will admit there are some funny scenes, mainly due to the absurdity of the world, like the fish running the sushi shop or the whole food chain. Oscar is a horribly unlikable protagonist. Nothing about his character is even remotely likable. Plus, he doesn't even learn throughout the film. He starts as an asshole and ends as an asshole. I generally could not stand him. This film also has a liar reveal trope, which I might add is my least favorite trope of all time. But this film does avoid the things I hate the most, which is when the characters immediately turn their back on the liar, often undoing the character growth of the protagonist. Don't get me wrong, this is still very pitiful. It is at the very end of the film and everyone is just like, okay, that's it. No repercussions. Nothing. What's the point? There are liar reveals that I hate more, mainly because they're actually in good movies. But on a critical standpoint, this is one of the worst because it fundamentally fails what it's supposed to do. There is some stuff I actually kind of like in this film, albeit mostly ironically. I kind of find the Shark Mafia fun, although horribly misguided, and Lenny is an actually likable character. He is genuinely the only character whose skull I did not want to bash into the wall. He also has a surprisingly okay queer allegory. It isn't perfect or anything, but for 2004 standards, this is actually really decent. I'm surprised. My favorite part of the movie, however, is Martin Scorsese as Sykes. It is hilarious that one of his few acting roles is from fucking Shark Tale. If I ever interview Scorsese, I will only ask him questions about Shark Tale, his Squarespace ad, and his dog that ate Paul Schrader's thumb. Obviously, this film should not have been nominated at all, especially considering Shrek 2 already got nominated. It is just one of the most baffling decisions in the entire category. I kinda love it. The SpongeBob movie should have been nominated instead though. For our first guest spot in the video, we have my good friend Matt Sushida. He makes very cool TikToks about 80s TV shows, and he would like to share a very interesting take on Shark Tale.
It is my belief that Shark Tale is the most important animated film ever made. Because until Shark Tale, we didn't understand that these movies could be terrible.
Don't swallow.
You might be saying, well, it's a kid's movie. Why would you take it seriously at all? No, I mean, it's bad for a kid's movie. What is the deal with the sharks? If they're supposed to be like the mafia...
It's a fish-eat-fish world. You either take or you get taken.
Then why does it matter when Robert DeSharco's character says that he now just accepts the Jack Black character because he's now a dolphin?
I love you, son, no matter what you eat or how you dress.
Like, isn't he still a mass murderer?
Let me explain.
Well, okay, let's hear him out. Anyway, Martin Scorsese has a voice role. He's pretty good in it.
Carl, raise the reef, buddy.
Back to your regularly scheduled program.
Peter, the horse is here.
Time for one of my many controversial takes in the video. I could not get into Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. I know this is a generally unpopular opinion, and I know it's well received, but I genuinely did not get any enjoyment out of it. The only two scenes where I got any remote enjoyment out of are the scenes where the mother horse gives birth, because it caught me off guard, and the scene where the horse falls off the waterfall because it looks funny. Other than that, I basically just checked out. The Matt Damon narration over Spirit is really weird and out of place. The movie would be the exact same if it didn't have it. His dialogue doesn't tell you anything you can't already infer. I would have preferred it if it didn't have the narration, as it allows the story to be entirely told through the horse's expressions. It wouldn't fix the film for me, but it would definitely improve it. The animation is horse. Yes, the animation is indeed horse. The animation is hit or miss. I think the expressions and movements on the horses are really good, but the backgrounds are weird. Some look decent, but then others are made using CGI and just doesn't hold up that well. I also did not really like the songs. They are all too sappy for my taste and just did not work for me. The story is also really boring. I could not get into the other characters in the slightest. Not the horses, not Little Creek, and not the Colonel. I did not find them interesting in the slightest. If you love this film, then great. I would like to hear why you like it so much, because it just isn't for me at all. 2002 doesn't have many films that I could even replace this film with. I'm probably gonna go with the Powerpuff Girls movie, as I've heard decent things about it. Or I could replace it with 8 Crazy Nights for the funny, but I think I pissed off Spirit fans enough already, so I will be nice.
Hey there, Princess Undercut.
Shut up! Shut up!
Skylar,
Shut up!
please
Shut up!
stop.
I hate Raya and the Last Dragon. Its main message about trust is so botched that it actually becomes harmful. For context, Raya trusts this girl named Namari into a secret chamber containing a dragon gem. Namari later betrays Raya and steals the dragon gem, eventually starting the end of the world. So in the future, Raya doesn't trust anyone. Okay, so let's start. Let's see how Raya grows. Raya then meets Sisu, a dragon who trusts everyone. Okay, so they're gonna have their main two characters be polar opposites of each other. I can get along with this. Raya and Sisu are then challenged in their beliefs, with Raya learning to trust people she met along the way, and Sisu trusting people who eventually betray her. Those scenes aren't executed properly, but they are fine on paper. Here's where my problem starts. Sisu doesn't seem to learn that blindly trusting people is bad, even though she got betrayed multiple times. Now on to the third act. Our party needs only one more dragon gem, but it is kept by Namari's clan. Then they try and make a peace offering, which is a solid way to gain trust with someone who has previously wronged you. It backfires and now Sisu is dead, showing that you cannot really regain the trust of some people and gives proper consequences to the character's actions. This is where the message should stop. It's good to trust people, but you shouldn't put too much trust in people, especially ones who've wronged you in the past. Of course they throw this all away and then all the characters immediately trust Namari even though she killed Sisu, and then the world is saved and Sisu is revived. What the actual fuck? You ruined the perfectly fine message and made it into something that is actually harmful. Telling people you should blindly trust people who have wronged you in the past. Absolutely not. I made that mistake many times in my life and it negatively impacted me. Kids absolutely shouldn't just go and blindly trust people like that. No other film in this marathon besides like Shark Tale has as much of a botched and harmful message as this movie. I have other problems with the film aside from that though. All 3 main characters are painfully annoying. Sisu is often the target, and yes, she is bad. Awkwafina seems like she's trying to be the genie from Aladdin, but fails horribly. But I find both Raya and Namari even more infuriating. Their banter made me want to bash my head in. My god, it's so cringe. If I hear the phrase dragon nerd again, I'm gonna start a thermonuclear war. I also think the plot goes on way too fast. There are interesting locations and characters shown, but we don't get to stay in one place. It should have been a TV show to flesh out this world more, because one of my main praises is that I really like the world building and mythology of this world. It genuinely feels like real world mythology. I'm something of a mythology enthusiast myself, so it's really cool to see. I also like the side characters a bunch. The Shrimp Boy, the Con Baby, and Benedict Wong are all interesting and entertaining as characters. I just wish they got more screen time because they were so fun. Like, I will take 10 Shrimp Boys over one Sisu. 2021 was almost a perfect year of nominees, but this movie reared its ugly head and ruined it. I would replace this film with a Japanese film called Belle, which is a unique take on Beauty and the Beast story, and I'm 90% sure it doesn't have an annoying dragon voiced by Aquafina in it.
Let me hold him. Yeah, you get that right there. What the dog doing?
Oh boy, another controversial take. I don't really like Bolt. Before I start, I'd like to mention this movie has had a rocky production. The film was originally going to be titled American Dog and follows a dog who is a TV star that gets stranded in the desert. He meets a one-eyed cat and a radioactive bunny while he gets to experience the real world. I wish we got that movie, but instead we got an infinitely worse Truman Show. This film's world building is terrible. All it does is raise questions. So the premise is that Bolt is a superhero show star, but he actually believes he's a superhero. I'm gonna compare this premise to The Truman Show to see how one works and one utterly fails. The Truman Show is a live broadcast of someone's ordinary life. The actors have no scripts and barely any special effects. Truman only realizes his world is fake due to simple production mistakes. Compare this to Bolt, where it's a weekly superhero show with plotlines and expensive effects. This just raises way too many questions, because for him to believe he is a superhero, you have to get everything perfect first time, no matter what. Actors need to memorize their lines perfectly. The crew, microphones, and cameras have to be perfectly hidden, and special effects have to be flawless. There's way too much that can go wrong that can't be easily covered up to keep the illusion. They also make a point that Bolt doesn't know basic bodily functions like stomach growling. How? So you're telling me the crew managed to make it so Bolt never experienced growling once in his life? I'm not saying Truman Show's world building is perfect. There are many questions like, how does the broadcast handle when Truman pees? But that is just a minor thing that doesn't break the entire story. Unlike with Bolt, where the more you think about it, the film just falls apart. Even ignoring the world building, I just did not get much out of the premise. Bolt believing he is a superhero is more frustrating than fun. I think part of that is the performance of John Travolta, which is such a weird choice and doesn't work at all. I've heard other people say this, but Adam West would have been a much better choice. The film wants to say stuff about how child actors are treated, but it does not go as in-depth as it really should. They pay lip service without expanding on it. The agent guy is just your generic corporate bad guy. Really boring without anything to him. I like Mittens a bit. She is an interesting character, but they don't do a whole lot with her. But what is there is decent enough. I do like her backstory, and I find her views on being a pet interesting, even if a very similar thing is done way better in Isle of Dogs. I hate Rhino. He is so annoying, and every line he said I wanted to smash him into the pavement. The road trip side of the film is fine. I do like Bolt learning to become an actual dog. Like asking for treats, playing fetch, and sticking his head out the side of the window. Those scenes are actually pretty cute. But there are a lot of boring sidetracks, like when they get captured by animal control. The ending is decent. It does show the growth Bolt has with him saving his owner, and it is a decently sweet scene. But I will never forgive this film for dissing the cinematic masterpiece that is Chicken Little. I am gonna replace this film with Waltz with Bashir. The first 30 minutes of The Boss Baby was the most mentally maddening experience I have ever had in my life. It was just pure insanity, and I think my brain melted a little. I genuinely could not tell what was going on, but I could say one thing: it was not boring. I do think the general idea of a secret baby organization, while entirely stupid, is a unique concept. I think the theme of a kid overcoming jealousy because of a new baby brother is a good idea, and it plays into it decently. But my god, what even is this movie? The film does eventually calm down once Tim and the boss baby go to this convention, and then it just becomes a generic kids film. There are a few good jokes, but nothing special happens outside of the villain reveal, which is the most insane plan I have ever seen. So he was a baby who got fired from Baby Corps for being lactose intolerant. And as revenge, he made a genetically modified puppy to steal the cuteness away from babies. What? This just took me so off guard. I don't know what to say. And then there was more generic and mindless stuff until the surprisingly good ending. I somehow got emotionally invested in the boss baby and Tim feeling lonely after being separated, as it is genuinely sweet and heartfelt. The final scene is kind of really good. Like, how? This is the boss baby. Why is the ending giving me an emotional reaction? This is the reason why it's above Bolt and Spirit. Sorry, not sorry. Still not a very good movie. It definitely should not have been nominated though. A Silent Voice should have absolutely gotten a nomination instead. Even if you absolutely needed a DreamWorks nomination for 2017, Captain Underpants is right there. This concludes D tier. We are moving on to C tier. Films that I just consider okay.
Big mouse, big mouse, big mouse.
Bitch.
We made it to our first winner of the category, as well as the first Pixar film. It's Toy Story 4. I do think the hate for this film is a bit overblown. I'm not gonna go out of my way to make a 6-hour video that claims the director of this movie hates Toy Story and made it bad on purpose. But I still do dislike this film a bit and find it the weakest of the entire franchise so far. I actually like this film at first, but the more I watch it and the more I think about it, the worse and worse it gets. I don't like the whole premise of Woody not being played with by Bonnie, because in Toy Story 3, Bonnie was all over Woody, and her want of him is what made Andy give him away. Now Bonnie doesn't want to play with him anymore? This always rubbed me the wrong way. Even if we ignore that, Bonnie literally plays with him in the film. Like, what? This makes the ending where Woody leaves make no sense, because surely Bonnie will still want to play with Woody. What happens if she doesn't find Woody? If they make it absolutely clear that Bonnie has zero interest in him, ignoring the fact it does sour a lot of Toy Story 3's impact, that scene would be so much better. I do have one other problem with the ending, and it is related to Bo Peep. I don't like her in this film. She is an asshole to Woody for no apparent reason when he's usually in the right. And yet he chooses to be with her? Huh? The ending is well made and should work, but it does get soured by these two main points. I also don't like how Bo Peep is adapted into this film. She just becomes a completely new character that is not in line with how she acted in the first two Toy Story movies. I wouldn't have minded this as much if she retained the same character in the opening while changed through the rest of the film, but as is, it's such a sudden change timeline-wise that I just don't really like it. My other biggest problem with this film is how they treat the returning characters. First, let's talk about Buzz. I hate his inner voice plot. All it does is make him look stupid and force a way to keep the plot coming instead of relying on his own intelligence and expertise. I would genuinely like to see a diehard fan of this film try and defend this. This is the one aspect of the film that I cannot see anyone liking, and I'm curious if someone that does actually exist. Then I will take a blurry picture of you and put it on the Cryptid Wiki. The other toys don't do anything. They are just stuck in the RV most of the time. Jessie does not do a single notable thing in this film besides pop a tire, which is really sad. I feel like they were put off the side so we can have time for the new characters, But Toy Story 3 balanced new characters and existing characters really well, so I don't know why this film didn't. Speaking of the new characters, I actually quite like them. Ignoring the quite horrifying world-building implications he brings, Forky is a really entertaining character to watch, and I love his design. Duke Kaboom is also funny and entertaining, and Ducky and Bunny are Key and Peele. Enough said. I'm fairly mixed on the antagonist Gabby Gabby though. I think she is fine, but compared to the other Toy Story villains, she is kinda underwhelming. I don't even know if I can even consider her a villain because she really isn't that evil. She is definitely menacing though, and I do like that even with all she did, Woody still looks out for her and gives her a happy ending. Something I don't hear a lot of people talk about is how good the new Randy Newman song is. It's really, really good, and I put it on from time to time. I do think it would have won Best Original Song if Elton John didn't make an absolute banger that year. The animation in this movie is beautiful. It is the best looking Pixar film by miles, especially at the antique store. If you think this film is great, that's awesome, and I won't insult you for it, but I don't think it should have won at all, as there are much better films nominated. I don't necessarily think this is the most offensive win, despite it being my lowest ranking. There are films that I consider better, but I'm more offended by their win. Well, I was looking at the submissions list and saw Primal and thought, screw it, Primal is awesome. Don't know why or how it was eligible, but I'm not complaining. Ice Age is a film I remember enjoying as a kid, but it didn't really stick in my mind at all. Rewatching it as an adult, I just find it kind of mid now. Most of the characters don't stick out to me that much. I don't really like Sid. He isn't that funny, I hate his voice, and I don't find him likable. I mean, he ruined the gay rhino's lunch. How could he? Manny is interesting, as his concept is great, but he is too much of a prick at the beginning. I get what they were going for, but he just comes off as unlikable when they should have made him more sympathetic. The reveal of what happened to his family is really well done and emotional. I like the use of cave paintings in it. His eventual relationship with the baby is sweet too. I don't get why the internet wanted to murder him in 2019. He did nothing wrong. If you want to start a hate group on a random character, go hate on someone who deserves it. Like Dingo from Pikmin 4. I hate his stupid little face and I want him to be eaten by a Bulborb. My favorite character in the film is Diego. I find his character arc really good. First wanting to please his master by giving him the baby, but then he warms up to the baby and questions his master. A scene that also works well is when Manny saves Diego. It definitely shows how Manny has grown as a character, and Diego gains more respect for Manny. I just wish this film had more moments like that. The Scrat sequences weren't as funny as I remembered them being. I think they are better in the later films, but I'm not gonna watch them to find out. But I still think they were mildly entertaining. The humor is hit or miss. There's a lot of gross out humor and poop jokes, but there were some pretty funny jokes, like the dodos who are into conspiracy theories. I'm not going to comment on the animation too much. It hasn't aged well, but I mean, it looks better than Shark Tale, if that means anything. I don't know, this is just an average and messy film. There are good moments, but for the most part, I find it bland. I've already said 2002 didn't have many films to replace with, so I'm gonna keep this film as I do like some of its more heartfelt moments.
Ah, a bear! Ah, a black man!
Oh boy, here's another controversial take. Next up on the chopping block is Brother Bear. I do get why people love this film, and I respect that. It does have great moments. The first 20 minutes are solid, setting up the brothers' relationship with each other. I get to care about these characters as it sets up great conflict throughout the story. The eldest brother dies, so Kenai gets revenge on the bear that killed him, and then in turn he transforms into a bear, where the third brother, Denahi, falsely thinks Kenai is dead, and now he is hunting Kenai. Great concept, great setup, and could be a really great emotional story. Then the film takes a nosedive and becomes a dumb comedy for the rest of it. It is kind of jarring to go from a serious moment to immediately a comedic tone. You have to build it up. Films like The Lion King and Finding Nemo know how to ease the audience into a comedic tone after a serious moment properly. This doesn't. We just get these annoying moose and Coda. I dislike Coda. I can't stand his voice at all, and all he talks about is the salmon run. Oh my god, shut up. I don't really like the Phil Collins songs. Some of the songs are fine, like Great Spirits and On My Way, which is probably the best song in the film, but I really don't like Welcome. I just really don't like how it sounds. And then there is No Way Out. For context, so it is revealed that the bear Kenai killed is actually Coda's mother. And I genuinely like the scene where Kenai finds this out. He then goes on to tell Coda, which could make for one of the most emotional moments in the entire Disney canon. But then this fucking Phil Collins song plays over the conversation Kenai is telling, and it's just executed so poorly that I just laughed during this scene. It would have been so much better if Kenai just tells Coda that he killed his mother. Before anyone says, "It's too dark for a Disney movie," I call BS. Disney got away with Bambi's mom dying, boys turning into donkeys to be sold off, Scar killing Mufasa and telling Simba it's his fault, Frollo burning half of Paris, Layton's death, Mulan finding remains of a massacred village, Dr. Facilier being dragged into hell, Judy getting an abortion. I don't think that last one happened, but you get the point. Not only does the song ruin a possibly great scene, it also sours the rest of the movie because I take it a lot less seriously now, even if the ending is decent. The animation in this movie is beautiful and vibrant, and this is definitely shown in the ending with the Northern Lights. I don't think this is a bad movie, and I completely get why people love it, but its flaws are too big for me to ignore. In 2003, there were 2 Satoshi Kon films that got snubbed in place with this movie. Those being Millennium Actress and Tokyo Godfathers. I'm gonna replace it with Tokyo Godfathers, which is about 3 homeless people finding an abandoned baby, and there are so many good character arcs in this film. I highly recommend it. Next up is Puss in Boots, the first one. The only time I even hear about this film nowadays is when people say how good its sequel is. And don't worry, that will be much, much later on this list. The first film, on the other hand, it's just okay. It doesn't really suck, but I don't really get much enjoyment out of it either. What I do like in this film is Puss in Boots as a character. He's definitely my favorite character in the Shrek universe, and part of that is due to Antonio Banderas' performance. He really elevates this character to legendary status. He is the reason why this film isn't any lower. There's some stuff that I still like though. Some of the fight scenes are pretty neat, especially the dance fight between Puss and Kitty Softpaws. There are some pretty cool visuals in it. I also find the idea of Jack and Jill being a duo of criminals to be fun. Too bad they don't do it to their fullest potential. Speaking of Kitty, she is fine. Fairly forgettable, but at least the sequel does her much justice. A character that doesn't appear in the sequel is Humpty Dumpty. He sucks. They really fumbled the bag with him that just wraps around to be hilarious. Everything about him just doesn't work. His design looks ugly, his relationship with Puss sucks, his backstory is stupid, his motives are convoluted, and his sacrifice is laughable. The best part about him is his twist villain reveal. Oh my god, it's so fucking funny that it makes me want to merge without looking. Everything about it is hilarious. From how he says I was always there, to the overly dramatic music, to the expressions on his face. When I got to the scene, I had to rewind it 5 times just to process what I had seen. Oh, I forgot to mention there is a kaiju climax with a giant goose. Yeah, that happened. Also, the credits are better than the entire film. Like, I had a lot of fun watching the credits. It kind of makes me want to do another ranking video of these movies, but only judge them by the credit sequences. If you want to see that, let me know, as I think it could be a lot of fun. There are 2 films in 2011 that I would replace this film with. First is Aardman's Arthur Christmas. which I haven't seen, but I've heard good things about it. And then Spielberg's The Adventures of Tintin, which may or may not be peak cinema. It has some of the best cinematography that I've seen in an animated film. I know the Academy hates motion capture, but holy shit, this really deserves a nomination. It did win the Golden Globe for the same category though, which is a rare Golden Globe W.
Nanomachine, son.
Oh boy, let's keep this one brief. Big Hero 6 is a film. It's fine. It has some good elements like Baymax. Baymax is really fun and I like his design. I think the main emotional theme with Hero coping with the loss of his brother is really solid and I like his growth as a character. I like the world of San Francisco. It's a neat idea of combining two different world cities. I also am a fan of the Microbots. Everything else is or bad. I don't really care about the other students. They are all forgettable, and they don't do anything interesting. Except TJ Miller, who actively pisses me off because he is TJ Miller. Not even Stan Lee can save him. Then there is the villain, Professor Robert Callahan. He could have been so good and been one of the most sympathetic Disney villains. His motive is right there, but then he doesn't have any remorse for Tadashi's death with...
That was his mistake.
And then he acts like a total dumbass, and we take him a lot less seriously. This film in itself isn't that bad. But what pisses me off about it is the fact that it won. Lego Movie wasn't even nominated, and it won over How to Train Your Dragon 2, Song of the Sea, and Tale of Princess Kaguya. It just boggles my mind that the Academy just ignores these beautiful films and brush them off. And how one fucking voter had the fucking audacity to call them Chinese saints. I'm gonna burn the fuck. I'm calm now. Lego Movie should have been nominated. Let's move on to the next film.
What the fuck is that? Bigfoot.
I love stop motion. It is easily one of my favorite types of animation because you can tell the love and care put into it. It is also the medium that ages the least, in my opinion. And Leica does a big part of my love for the medium. Unfortunately, their latest film as of now, Missing Link, is kind of underwhelming. Nothing is inherently wrong with it. I do like the idea of having a film based on a cryptozoologist trying to find the Sasquatch. It is a fun concept that you'd think I would enjoy a lot, but it is just alright. The main character, Lionel, is fine, not that special. I do like Susan the Sasquatch. I find him pretty fun, and it's definitely the highlight of the film. The villains are basic, not too interesting, but they serve their purpose. The love interest Lionel has is potentially interesting, but they don't do much with her. Something else that is very lacking is the action. They are very well animated and should be exciting. One of them even takes place on a boat that's tilting on the side and the characters start walking on the walls. That sounds like it should be a really cool action sequence, but in execution they are just pretty boring. I think the cause of this is the subpar sound design and score. It just makes these scenes uninteresting. I was extremely disappointed by the bar fight in particular, where it should be really fun, but it was just underwhelming. I should not watch a bar fight and feel bored. The animation is still very good though, and there are some really cool set pieces, especially the boat in Shangri-La. I just hope Leica's next film, Wildwood, will be good. It seems to be one of their most ambitious projects yet. I am gonna replace this film with Morona's Fantastic Tale, which is about a dog going to different owners and experiences the challenges of what it is to be a pet.
Happy Feet! Wombo combo!
Happy Feet is such a weird film. Going into this film, I just expected a silly dancing penguin movie. But what I got instead is a film about religious zealotry and overfishing, featuring Robin Williams playing a Hispanic stereotype penguin, while everyone calls humans aliens. And then I looked at the director and saw George Miller. Yeah, that checks out. I frankly don't know what to think of this movie. I'm just confused by its existence. I actually don't hate the religious zealotry angle. The idea of how religion can create outcasts in society just for who someone is and then blame them for a random issue is a decent idea, and it is a real thing that happens in real life. But I do wish this film went more into that. After Mumble gets exiled, nothing much really happens. It's fairly standard, but I wouldn't call it boring. I did not put my eyes off the screen one bit. I was just enamored by how surreal the world is. Why are all the Adelie penguins Hispanic? Why is the leopard seal so ugly? What is the deal with Lovelace? I do actually like it when Mumble gets taken by the humans and starts to have hallucinations at the aquarium. Very similar to the real-life phenomena zoochosis. I thought that was fairly interesting. Though I find it kinda silly that all the world's governments just stop overfishing because the penguins start tap dancing, but at this point I did not question it. Sidetrack, but I thought the humans were animated for a second, and then I realized they were live action. I think this movie might have broke my brain. Speaking of the animation, it hasn't aged the best. The character designs are ugly, but one thing I will give the animation credit for is the tap dancing. Its motion capture by Savion Glover is really good. The cinematography is also really good. There are some beautiful shots and camera movements. This movie is a jukebox musical, and you know what? Most of the musical numbers work. Spanish cover of My Way is really good, and I like The Song of Your Heart by Prince, which was actually written for this movie. It actually has a funny story behind it. So the producers were just gonna ask Prince if they could use his song Kiss. So he watched a screening of the film and enjoyed it so much that he not only let him use the song, he also wrote an entirely new song just for the movie. I found this bit of trivia really cool. 2006 has easily the weirdest batch of nominees, with Happy Feet, Cars, and Monster House. Obviously, since we haven't seen the other two films, I don't think Happy Feet should have won, but I don't think any of the other nominees should have won either. That's right, I think there's a film that should have not only been nominated, but also won this year. That being Satoshi Kon's last film, Paprika. Please watch it, it's really good. It actually influenced Inception, so if you like that film, you might like Paprika. It is easily the worst nomination snub in the category's history, and it really should have been at least nominated. 2006 was actually going to have 5 nominations due to meeting requirements of 16 submissions, but a film called Arthur and the Invisibles got disqualified for not meeting the 75% animation threshold, lowering the amount to 3. I personally have a lot of problems with this rule for many reasons, but I won't go into it, but I definitely think Paprika would have been nominated if that film wasn't disqualified. Also, the other film I would have nominated is A Scanner Darkly.
Scotland forever!
Brave is often considered one of the weaker Pixar films. And yeah, it's not amazing. I don't dislike it like other people do though. This film had a rough production. It had to switch directors at one point, and it definitely shows as a lot of this film is fairly messy. I find Merida to be an average protagonist. There isn't anything inherently wrong with her, but there isn't anything that stands out with her either. I do like her archery scene. I thought that was pretty neat, but the rest was just eh. I kinda disliked her mother for a bit. I did not find her that engaging and felt she was a little too mean at points. But I significantly liked her a lot more when she turned into a bear. Kind of a reverse of Brother Bear in that aspect. It helps that she could not speak and instead just relied on expressions, which I always appreciate in animation. And I got more out of her relationship with Merida as a bear. A scene that stood out to me is when they are just fishing together. I appreciate little moments like that in film, and I thought was fairly well done. I don't really care about the whole princess being forced to marry a suitor story. I find it to be a tired trope. There is a film way later on the list that does this concept a lot better, and once you know it, it's not a favorable comparison. I also don't like the comedy in this film. A lot of it is just people yelling or screaming or fighting, and it gets tiresome at a point. Especially with the maid. All she does is scream. I also didn't like it when the baby bears jumped into a woman's bosom. Why was that in the film? Black Cauldron did it better. I do like the dad Fergus though. I find him to be a fun character, and I like how he just doesn't really care about gender norms. Like, hell yeah! I also like the witch, and found her to be one of the most interesting characters in the film. Too bad she is only in 1.5 scenes. I also find the lore of Mor'du interesting. It definitely feels like a real myth that you'd find in Scotland. The backgrounds are great too. This film won for 2012, and no, I'm not too bothered by this, but why did it win? Especially when there's a much better Disney film up for it. I am gonna replace Brave with Up on Poppy Hill, which is the only Goro Miyazaki film that is worth a damn. Please do not be put off by his involvement, or the story. It is a really sweet film and it's definitely underrated in the Ghibli lineup.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
Out of all the major studios I had to watch during this marathon, my favorite is easily Studio Ghibli. It doesn't even come close. Most of their films are beautiful achievements of art. There are a few exceptions, of course, but for the most part, they are amazing. And the nominees reflect that for the most part, besides one film. Before I say what it is, I want to make this very clear. I don't consider this film bad by any means. It just isn't for me. With that being said, I did not care for when Marnie was there. I was hoping on rewatch I could appreciate it more, but my opinion on the film has stayed the same. The film is about a girl named Anna being sent to live with her relatives. She finds an abandoned mansion and finds a mysterious girl named Marnie. Here is where my problems start. I noticed that a lot of the top Letterboxd reviews for this film were saying that this is queerbait, even by people who love this film. I was confused by this, because on my first viewing, I didn't really see any romantic tension between Anna and Marnie. But on rewatch, yeah, it's definitely there. To the point where they were more intimate than some actual Ghibli romances. Marnie calls Anna her special little secret. Anna blushes around Marnie a lot, and she even gets jealous when Marnie dances with a boy. Usually I wouldn't care if it's queerbait. And then they reveal that Marnie is the ghost of Anna's grandmother. I of course already knew it, which made these scenes feel really awkward on rewatch. Which is a major problem because how are you supposed to feel about these scenes if they are related? It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not going to let this hamper the film's score too much, as I know it was slightly unintended, but it still really bothers me and was worth mentioning. I do have more significant problems with the reveal, though. I found it abrupt. There wasn't any proper build-up. On rewatch, I was hoping there would be cool hints that they are related, but I couldn't really find any. Plenty of hints about Marnie being a ghost, but not really about them being related. The best I could come up with is that they both have blue eyes, which I know is rare in Japan. I don't know. I might be missing something. I also felt the story where this is revealed to be really forced and convoluted. All it does is just make me ask questions, and I don't really like it. There are still a lot of things I like in this film. The aforementioned scenes with Marnie and Anna are good if you ignore the twist. I genuinely find them really sweet together, and they're a delight to watch. Anna is also a pretty solid protagonist. She has some pretty interesting struggles, and if I liked this film more, I could see myself really connecting with her. I also like the little girl that Anna meets who helps her figure out who Marnie really is. The initial mystery is pretty interesting. I just wish it didn't end the way it did. The animation is also really gorgeous, even for a Studio Ghibli film. The backgrounds are super detailed and full of life. Like, look at some of these shots. Despite being the weakest nominee for 2015 in my opinion, I actually am not going to replace it with anything. There weren't that many good submissions, and I do think they chose the best they could for this year. I probably just don't get this film, so please explain why you like it so much, because I might change my opinion in the future. What is that? What the
Oh my god. Oh my god. Holy. I think I broke something. Oh my god. What happened? Wait. Are we talking about Ghibli Studios' 2014 film when Marnie was there, nominated for Best Animated Feature at the 2015 Oscars? Yeah, I'm actually perfectly healthy. I can talk about it. What do you mean 3 out of 5? That's actually No, hold on. I need to talk with this otter guy. Ooh. Guess I'll just take the stage myself then. Yo, my name's Liam, and I actually really like When Marnie Was There. Obviously, it isn't my favorite Ghibli film, as there's others like Spirited Away, of course, and Kiki's Delivery Service, and etc. But I still think it's a really solid film that's leagues better than how this otter guy describes it. Albeit unintentional, I absolutely do see the queerbaiting angle people keep talking about, so much so I had this set of messages I sent on Discord while reacting to the film. God, these bitches gay. Never mind.
Me when someone asks for the name of the album cover with the baby on it.
Looking back at the film more, however, nothing explicitly really feels too much like they're interested in each other like that. It's more just how I believe Marnie knows who Anna is, and that's what the little secret thing is. Quite obviously, the film wouldn't involve romance like that in it, because unlike most other anime creators, Hiromasa Yonebayashi doesn't get off to the concept. I believe the twist actually works quite well. It isn't perfect by any means, but the way it recontextualizes the rest of the movie and makes it all just make more sense, it's really satisfying yet depressing. It makes you appreciate Marnie and her relationship with Anna a lot more as well. I find Anna to be an extremely solid protagonist for the film, and her relationship with Marnie is really strong. And I mostly agree with everything else this otter guy said, just like how amazing the backgrounds look. Oh, he already did this, you don't get to look at any backgrounds, never mind. Now that I've talked about how good the film is, I want to just say how when Marnie was there is not like us in movie form.
I didn't invite you.
So, what you have to...
Ouch!
Oh my
Ouch!
god! Oh, wait,
Sorry about that. I don't know who that was. Whatever. Let's just move on to the next segment.
Granddad! Flintstones?
Hell yeah! Crude Sweep! The Cruise is officially better than a Ghibli film! Grog Gang! Release the Purple Cory! Whoa! Okay, joking aside, I don't actually think this movie is better than when Marnie was there. Then why did I put it above, you may ask? For the funny. Yeah, that's the only reason. I'm just inexplicably passionate about this film, and I have no idea why. This isn't like Chicken Little or Cars 2, where my passion for those films is mostly by how absurdly they screwed up. But with The Croods, I just think it's neat. It isn't good by any means, the story is really generic and the jokes aren't that funny, but I don't really care. It's The Croods, and if I'm having fun, that's all that matters. I do have some genuine praise for this film, though. While I do think Grug, throughout most of the film, isn't that great, he barely gets any character growth, but the scene where he gets stuck in tar with Guy is really well made. Sure, I do wish his change of heart was more natural, but how he learns to trust Guy in the scene, and them working together is really good and heartfelt. I also like the scene where Grug throws his family off the cliff because it's funny. I also think the world building, specifically the creature designs, like the death cats, the bear owls, the swamp tree elephants, and the piranhakeets, are really cool, names aside. I really like how this movie shows how each creature lives within its environment. Despite my passion for this film, I don't think it should have been nominated. I'm not the biggest fan of Monsters University, but it's a lot better than this film, and I think it should have been nominated instead.
I'm like a god in human clothing! Lightning bolts shoot from my fingertips!
It bothers me that the first Incredibles film is called The Incredibles, while the second is called Incredibles 2. I hope someone got fired for that blunder. Anyways, Incredibles 2. I'm really mixed on this film. I used to hate this film, mainly because of how inferior it is as a sequel, but on rewatch I tried to keep this bias to a minimum, and see how it functions as a standalone film. It works fine. There are definitely things that contradict the first film, but they aren't as major as, say, Ralph Breaks the Internet or Toy Story 4. One of my biggest problems initially is how unsupportive Mr. Incredible was for Helen. And while I still don't like these scenes and rather have them not be in the film, I have seen people defend these scenes of him acting irrationally due to the stress of taking care of the kids and everything else. And you know what? My problem with these scenes kind of diminished. This also applies to one of my other initial complaints, is that superheroes are still illegal. It was heavily implied in the first film that they became legal, but it was not confirmed, so who cares? But I still have major problems with the film, however. Firstly, the Violet subplot with Tony Ridinger. It's just super frustrating, and all the characters don't act like themselves in it. Violet gets super creepy around Tony, and then the scene where Bob forces her to go to a restaurant where Tony works at just does not sit with me well. Secondly, I don't like the new supers. I find them all underdeveloped and not that interesting as characters. Plus, the Blue Crusher guy actively pisses me off. What do you mean you can't uncrush? Just crush in the opposite direction! Finally, the biggest flaw which everyone talks about. Evelyn Dever. Everything about her fundamentally doesn't work. From her motives, to her plan, to her reveal, to the seizures, even her name sucks. Her name is literally Evil Endeavor. Really creative, guys. That's the kind of shit you'd expect in an Ace Attorney game. Her reason for hating supers kinda makes sense. She hates how reliant people were on them, but her backstory is so stupid. Yeah, sorry, your father was just a dumbass for not putting the phones in the safe room and not realizing that supers are illegal. Whatever, I can get past that. What I can't get past is her plan. She wants to make supers illegal when they are already illegal. So she helps her brother to make them legal again, just so she can make them illegal. It's so convoluted and makes zero sense. Jimmy McGill can't help heroes without your technology. Why are you actively helping him? I actually don't hate the screenslaver as a concept. I find the idea of a villain who is a commentary on how people are influenced by the media to be a really good idea. I just wish they were their own character instead of being Evelyn Dever. I've complained a lot, but there are some really good moments that it evens the film out for me. I really like the Bob and the kids plot, ignoring Violet. I find it interesting to see him struggle with the kids when he is so used to being out of the house all the time. A scene that stands out to me is when he's helping Dash with math homework and doesn't understand the new formulas that are being taught. It is a really cute moment. You can tell he genuinely cares about the kids even if they wore him down. I also like Jack Jack. I know a lot of people are bothered by his presence in the film, but I find his scenes funny. I'm not bothered by his amount of powers, since he is just a baby and doesn't have full control of them. So it isn't really a problem, unlike that stupid overpowered Skrull from Secret Invasion. I also find Jack Jack's relationship with Edna to be really cute. The action scenes are excellent, dare I say, even better than the first film. At least the motorcycle and helicopter scenes. They have really stunning visuals and are mesmerizing to watch. The score is also really good. Not as good as the first film, but still very memorable. I don't hate this movie. The scenes that I really like, which propel this film higher than you'd expect, but its flaws are too major to ignore. It's a shame. I did not expect something better or even on par with the first film, but I don't find this to be satisfying at all. I feel like there was potential in this story, and I think the script needed a few more rewrites. If this film had another year instead of being pushed forward for Toy Story 4, it could have been a lot better. I'm gonna replace this film with Liz and the Bluebird.
Your first husband also disappeared.
But that was his job. He was an illusionist.
But he never reappeared.
He wasn't a very good illusionist.
So far, most of the films I've talked about were from major studios. Which makes sense, as those studios are more likely to make films just for money rather than art. But we are finally at our first independent animated film, The Illusionist. I'm not too huge on this film, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't check it out. It is a film by French director Sylvain Chomet, best known for the triplets Belleville. The film is about a struggling illusionist who isn't appreciated until he meets a young girl who believes his magic is real. This was actually a very old script in the 1950s by Jacques Tati, who originally intended it to be a live-action film for his eldest daughter as a love letter. The main character in this film is heavily based on Tati. The film also has very little dialogue, and most of it is more so treated like noise. I know this may put some people off, but I do really like these kinds of films as they have creative ways of telling complex stories without dialogue. This is my main problem with the film. I don't think it's clear enough that the girl believes in the illusionist's magic. It actually took me halfway through the film to get that, which isn't good. Ideally, you want to make it very clear in the first scene with her, and then build off of it. It just isn't really clear. I think another thing that isn't very clear is the illusionist and girl's relationship. I genuinely can't tell what the relationship between these two characters are supposed to be. Only after doing research and finding context is when I found out it was supposed to be a father-daughter relationship. But they really need to show that within the film. I hate to say it, but I think the film would have been better if it had dialogue. The film is still very unique though. I love the animation. Some shots are very pretty, and I like how it brings Edinburgh to life. I did not expect to see a film that romanticizes Edinburgh like this, but I'm not complaining. I think the illusionist is a cool character. I love seeing the struggle of him trying to make a living out of a dying art form. My favorite scene in the film is when the illusionist gets a job cleaning cars. I really like the detail put into the scene and the struggles he is having maintaining that job. I was engaged for the majority of that scene, and I wish more of the film kept me that engaged. 2010 was another year where it met the requirement of 16 films to get 5 nominees, but a film got disqualified, so now there are only 3. I do think they chose a really good lineup, even if I didn't care for Illusionist. Some of the notable snubs are Megamind and Tangled, but I don't really like the idea of replacing it with those. I would personally go with Summer Wars instead, which is about a high schooler who accidentally lets an AI that wants to destroy the world access to a major tech corporation that owns everything. But I would still recommend this film. You may get more enjoyment from it than me. I know my good friend YTPer does.
Alright, let me just preface this segment by saying that Otter is an anti-art scum who doesn't know what he's talking about. Please ignore everything that he just said about this film. Now that you know how seriously I'm taking this, allow me to begin. So one of Otter's main critiques of the film was that it didn't make it obvious at first that the girl genuinely believed in the illusionist's magic. However, when she first sees him performing at the pub, her reaction is much more different compared to the crowd around her. She looks almost mesmerized when watching him. This same reaction happens again when she meets him upstairs and he does a magic trick using a bar of soap. Otter's other critique was that the film didn't make it clear that the girl and illusionist are supposed to have a father and daughter type dynamic. When I first watched the film, this was made instantly clear to me just from the designs alone. You can tell that the girl is obviously way younger than the illusionist. This is further made clear to me in scenes at the beginning where the illusionist buys a pair of shoes and coat for the girl not long after meeting her. Lastly, I should mention that all of these ideas were able to be conveyed to me without the need of dialogue. I was able to understand character dynamics and emotions just by reading their facial expressions and body language, of which Chomet is a master of depicting. But with all that being said, this is YTPer signing off.
The pizza is aggressive.
Oh shit.
Ah yes, Oscar-nominated film Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. This is one of the funniest nominations to me because of how ridiculous it is. Plus, it's one of the first nominations for this category, so like, I don't even know what they were doing. Anyways, I never grew up on Jimmy Neutron, so I didn't know what to really expect going into this film. And it's alright. I don't really have much to say. The characters are fine, albeit one note. I do enjoy Hugh Neutron a lot though, even if he wasn't in the film much. I also surprisingly enjoyed Sheen a bunch. He had some funny jokes with how much he is obsessed with Ultra Lord. The story is super out there too. I just want to point out the absurdity of this 10-year-old kid basically causing an alien apocalypse. The animation hasn't aged well, especially compared to Monsters Inc. and Shrek. I enjoyed myself, but it really isn't my thing, and it didn't really convince me to watch the show. I'm gonna replace this with Richard Linklater's Waking Life, an entirely rotoscoped film. It is a really unique form of animation that isn't recognized enough. These next 4 films are films that are generally well liked, but they just aren't for me. There isn't really anything wrong with these films, and my criticism can be very minor. But I just don't really get much out of these like other people do. The first of these films is Surf's Up. It's just a film I personally can't get into, and that is mainly because it is a mockumentary, which is a genre that I don't care about that much. I think it is just the format that doesn't work with me. There are exceptions, of course, but for the most part, it isn't a genre I care about. I also don't like sports films, so yeah, this isn't a great combination for me. None of this means I dislike the film or think it is bad. I think it is a novel concept to make an animated film that is a mockumentary. This wasn't something that had been done before, which was neat. I don't really have many criticisms for this film. I guess Cody is a little generic as a protagonist, but he serves his purpose, and I do like that he prioritizes his friends instead of winning. Although this concept has been done way better in Cars of all films. The humor also isn't a strong point. It's fine, nothing special, though there are a few jokes that stick in my mind. Namely the fire urchin bit, and when Chicken Joe doesn't care that he is being cooked alive. A character I liked a bunch is Big Z. I like Jeff Bridges' performance. It's like if you took the Big Lebowski but made him into a penguin. I also found the idea of a popular surfer suddenly disappearing and assuming a new identity, and then learns to regain his passion of surfing to be well done. I like the scenes where he taught Cody how to surf and build a board. I think he's a really good character. This film also has nice looking water. I should put this on Meverse. As an otter, I am deeply offended by the portrayal of otters in this film. Firstly, what is that haircut? It looks disgusting. Secondly, he's played by James Woods. Ew. And thirdly, not all otters are greedy assholes who think for themselves. Though I guess this is better than a Vince McMahon otter fantasizing about drinking a fish's butthole. Yes, that happened in the sequel. 2007 was a great year of nominees, even though this is definitely the weakest by a wide margin. Some notable snubs are The Simpsons movie, Meet the Robinsons, and the film that I'm replacing Surf's Up with, Tekken Concrete, which is about two homeless orphans trying to survive in a shady town overrun by the mafia while the town is in threat of being torn down. Please watch it, it's really good. You may have noticed that when I've been recommending films, I've usually been recommending Japanese anime films. This is because the Academy rarely nominates them, and when they do, it's usually Studio Ghibli. I love Ghibli, but there's so much to Japanese animation than just them, and I wish more Japanese films would get nominated. The only non-Ghibli film as of now that has been nominated is Mirai. Unfortunately, I don't get it very much. I still respect it for what it is, but it isn't a film I can personally get into. It was directed by Mamoru Hosoda, also known for directing films like Wolf Children, Summer Wars, Boy and the Beast, and Belle, among others. He's about a 4-year-old boy named Kun trying to cope with getting a younger sister named Mirai, meaning future. Kun often has tantrums and sometimes abuses his sister by hitting her with a bullet train toy. Kun is then transported into a dream or memory which helps him understand the world a little more. He often meets future versions of his sister, a human version of his dog, and a past version of his mother. This is a good concept, but I think the execution is very messy. It gets really confusing and hard to follow at times. I do like the inclusion of the future version of Mirai though. I thought that was a neat addition and found her pretty interesting. The stuff with Kun's mother in the past is good too, showing Kun that his mother had similar problems as him as a child. I think when it gets more abstract is when I start to lose interest, especially when Kun is trapped in the train station. I also don't see what is added with the human version of his dog. He was fun though. I also did like the scene where Kun turns into a dog because it's well animated. But again, I don't really understand the point. One of my other problems with this setup is that Kun doesn't seem to learn anything until the very end. For example, after meeting future Mirai, you'd expect him to learn to be nicer to her. But no, he still hits her with a toy train. This is like if Ebenezer Scrooge, after knowing Tiny Tim will die, begins to tax the hell out of the Cratchits. It just makes me feel like these scenes were useless in Kun's character growth. My other complaint is that Kun is a little too much. If you dislike kids and how they act, especially young ones, this is not the film for you because he screams all the time. I mean, he is 4 years old, but it's still grating on the ears. I do appreciate that this is accurate to how 4-year-olds would act, as they are little shits. The animation is also stellar, very vibrant and beautiful. I do wish I liked this film more. I may need to rewatch it at some point in the future. Huh? Get it? Future? Mirai? Alright, I'll go. We made it to B tier. 7 out of 10s. Films that I consider to be good.
Father, when can I leave to be on my own? I've got the whole world to see.
I expect this one to be quite controversial, but I'm not the biggest fan of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. It's a good film, but there is enough holding it back for me from liking it that much. Which sucks because I was really excited getting into this one. I really liked The Shape of Water and I wanted to check out the rest of Del Toro's work, but after watching this film, I was just disappointed. Let's start with what I like. Firstly, the animation is amazing. There are some truly striking scenes and visuals, and I wholly respect the craft. I especially like the character designs. They are in a distinct style, and I'd like to specifically point out Pinocchio's design. He looks wooden. Most other Pinocchios don't look wooden. He looks wooden. The designs of the fairies are also super cool. I also like the decision to have Geppetto actually have a kid that dies. It adds a new layer to the Pinocchio story where it gives more meaning to Pinocchio's existence rather than him being built just because Geppetto felt like it. It does handle the grief themes well, and I like when Geppetto initially resents Pinocchio for not being his son. The film is kind of like a Frankenstein story in a way, with people viewing Pinocchio as an unholy beast, including his creator. Funnily enough, Del Toro is making a Frankenstein movie. The final act inside the sea monster is also really good too. I like how all the characters team up with each other to escape the beast. It is a quite thrilling sequence, seeing them try and escape, and Pinocchio's sacrifice is really good. I also like how this movie deals with themes of death and immortality, going into what it means to be immortal, and it plays into the ending really well. I also like the monkey. It is a much better Cate Blanchett role than Lydia Tarr. Okay, I'm joking. I haven't seen Tar, I'm sure she's great in that, but she isn't making monkey noises, so I don't care. Now on to the stuff I'm not that big on. I am not a fan of the war and fascism themes in the film. They aren't bad, and I'm glad they are in the film, but I'm just not a fan of war movies in general. I find them pretty boring without all too much to chew on. When it comes to Pinocchio, I respect it and I completely understand why it's there, but I just find these scenes boring and not too interesting. I'm sorry. To give it credit, I like how it showed how they basically forced children into being soldiers. And I appreciate Del Toro taking the risks into adding these themes into a PG-rated film. And I do think it's really cool that there is a kid-friendly but serious anti-fascism film that is straight to the point. But it just doesn't click with me personally. I also did not like the music. None of the songs are good, and I don't think this film should have been a musical at all. The only song I got any sort of emotion out of is when Pinocchio sings about poop in front of Mussolini, who is played by SpongeBob. I also didn't care for the villain all too much. He is fine, but left a lot to be desired. I do like the idea of combining the fox, Mangiafuoco, and the ringmaster into one character. It's a really good decision that should work, but I just wasn't engaged by him that much, unfortunately. Like I said, not a bad film in the slightest. It's just a film I respect more than I actually like. Despite being the lowest of the 2022 nominees, I'm not mad that this film won. I had actually preferred over Turning Red and The Sea Beast, even if I like those films more. I am replacing this film with Phil Tippett's Mad God, a film that took over 30 years to create, and it shows.
You understood what I've just said to you.
Yes. Lung cancer.
You heard the rumor, right? That Isle of Dogs is blatant dog propaganda? Even the title is a subliminal message. Isle of Dogs. Isle of Dogs. I love dogs. I'm on to you, Wes. Joking aside, this is in a similar boat with Pinocchio. It's a good film that I just can't get into that much. I typically really like Wes Anderson. I find his style and way of storytelling to be really engaging and fun, but this film is easily his weakest. Keep in mind that this is in B tier, and very much a 7 out of 10 for me. I don't think Wes has made a single bad film, or even one I would call mid. I think stop motion and Wes Anderson are a match made in heaven. The medium of stop motion allows a lot of intricacies, which fits Wes's style perfectly. And this film is no different. I love how the trash island looks. The amount of detail is astounding. I love the cotton clouds that appear when the dogs fight. I love that the TV show 2D animation as opposed to the stop motion. And of course, I love the sushi scene. Now onto the story. I do like Chief's relationship with the boy Atari. I think how dismissive Chief was with him at first, but over the course of the film, he slowly warms up to him, and it is really sweet and interesting. I do love the scene where Atari gives Chief the doggy biscuit. I also found Spot to be an intriguing character and found his backstory really good. There are also some minor characters I like, such as the dog who is said to predict the future, but they just understand the TV. Or the cannibal dogs who don't like being called cannibals. However, I don't like most of the other dogs. I find them to be a bit generic and really unmemorable. They don't have any unique quirks or any memorable dialogue outside of the rumor gag. I guess Chief's love interest is fine, generic but passable. In general, I'm not a fan of the dialogue like I am in other Wes Anderson films. I'd also like to talk about the Japanese not being translated. In concept, I don't hate this because the whole point is that we only understand the dogs. But when we have human characters that speak normal English, it kind of undermines the whole concept. It just makes me question what the whole point was. Speaking of the human stuff, Tracy is easily the weakest part of the film. I am not going to get into the white savior part that much. It is a little weird, but she also isn't the only person who leads the revolution. Atari, the hacker boy, and the scientist do more, so I'm not that bothered by it. What I am is just her character in general. I find her boring, irritating, and not all that engaging. Whenever her scenes pop up, it just takes me out of the film. Doesn't help that she is a 17-year-old who has a crush on Atari, a prepubescent boy. Yeah, I do like the scene where Walter White gets his lung cancer cured, though. And this concludes part 1. Thank you for watching. Part 2 should come out around mid-June to mid-July. I think around that time frame is when you should expect it. Anyways, goodbye. Have a nice day. And here's a cute otter.